Poll. Joining us this morning is Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, who represents Staten Island, parts of Brooklyn. Nice to have you back.
Good morning.
So you were part of that lawsuit on Staten Island with the borough president there and the teachers union. What do you think got the attention of the governor? Because this was kind of shocking last minute about face.
Well, I think there is very much merit to our lawsuit. We were arguing that it was going to shift pollution to the outer boroughs, predominantly minority communities like the North Shore of Staten Island. We've also argued that there wasn't a full and thorough environmental impact statement as required by federal NEPA law, that the Biden administration had rubber stamped this. And so I feel that, number one, the governor probably thought that maybe a judge was going to put it to a halt, and she wanted to get ahead of that because she'd be embarrassed. Or I also think that the political pressure that we placed on the governor, both local elected officials in Staten Island in a bipartisan way, myself, Josh Gottheimer, Mike Lawler, and others, who were not letting this go. We were going to continue to fight and look for every legal and legislative tool until we killed it.
Let me ask you, we've heard every excuse about why she paused this, right? Last week it was, you know, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries went to her and basically begged, hey, this is not going to be good. We could use we're going to lose some congressional seats. Now we're hearing from former Governor David Paterson that she told him that people told her they were afraid to ride the subway because it's unsafe. Yeah. I mean, what? And then we hear about the political pressure in Albany. Let's face it, the teachers union runs Albany, along with other unions also against this congestion pricing.
I think it was a combination of these things, but people should know that I had put a provision in the transportation funding bill in Washington that would have prevented congestion pricing from moving forward, and it was Chuck Schumer that removed it in the negotiations. So they may on one face tell the public that or be quiet about it, they're not saying anything, but behind the scenes they are trying to jam congestion pricing through. What I would say is New Yorkers need to be vigilant. They need to keep calling their elected officials, particularly the Democrats who voted for congestion pricing on the state level. They have to keep calling the governor, because I do get concerned that the election's November 5th, that November 6th they can bring it back, because we know that it was partly politically motivated, that we do believe that it would have had an impact and is being used in this election. But whatever the case may be, the UFT, borough president, myself, we're going to keep this lawsuit. We need to make sure that we kill congestion pricing for good.
It seems unlikely that they're going to take down those sensors. I mean, how much money it costs to put them up. Do you see them at some point turning on the sensors maybe for a $5 instead of a $15? I mean, what do you think is going to happen next year?
Well, that's exactly what we're concerned about, right? If this was truly dead, they would consider removing those sensors and probably trying to sell them to another municipality. But whatever the case may be, we know that the MTA needs funding. Why? Because it is mismanaged. How many of their capital projects are years over schedule and billions of dollars over budget? The sensors are the one thing that they managed to put up right away without a problem. All of a sudden there was no delay and they were able to do it in record time. But I will point out this: the state budget, they are spending $100 billion more today than they were a decade ago in New York State. They can easily find the money to plug the hole. Not to mention the fare evasion, $700 million last year. When you have 45% of New Yorkers not paying, or people on the buses not paying their share, that's where you're seeing the hole.
Certainly fare evasion has been a major sticking point over the last several years, not just with the governor, but also with the NYPD and sort of moving forward with some of those issues there. And when we talk about funding, and we talk about finding money, what can you do on a federal level? Because a lot of this comes from the state, comes from the governor, comes from Albany. But what do you see as the role of the federal government in trying to move this forward and move past the next stage?
The federal government already pays about a fifth of the capital plan for the MTA. And as you know, during COVID, we gave billions of dollars to keep it afloat.
What happened to all that money?
During that, well, that's the question. I mean, the question really is, how much is enough? It's a black hole. No matter how much money you give them, it never seems to be enough. But I feel the state does have a responsibility to prioritize their spending. When I was in Albany, right, when I first came in 2011, it was a $125 billion budget. We're talking now about $240 billion, nearly doubled.
Wow.
Nearly doubled. And you're going to tell me they can't prioritize mass transit? Look what they're spending money on. The billions that they're spending money on to provide health care, legal services, laundry services, housing for illegal immigrants, including, by the way, reduced Metro cards for them.
Okay, so migrants, by the way, you know, the president put in a new order to restrict access at the border. It doesn't seem like it's working. And then we had last week, I mean, what a slap in the face to New York City to have that migrant shoot 2 New York police officers. What's the latest on that? What can be done? Because we hear that guy got asylum.
Well,
He got asylum.
I was really happy to see a bipartisan group of New York City council members, including Bob Holden of Queens, Joe Borelli, David Carr from Staten Island, come together to call for the cooperation with ICE by the NYPD. As you know, the city council stripped NYPD's ability to cooperate to deport individuals who are here committing crimes. And so they're trying to get them that authority back. That's number one. Number two, we just have to stop, the mayor just has to stop doing what he's doing. I mean, think about this. You have people here committing crimes. These are Venezuelan gangs, dangerous individuals, repeat offenders. They're getting arrested and released over and over again. And then they're putting them in hotels that we, the taxpayers, are paying for. We're literally paying for these people to wreak havoc in our city. It is outrageous. And wouldn't it be better to use that money to fund mass transit for all New Yorkers?
It would be nice. I see you also going after AOC because that shooting of the 2 police officers were in her district.
Well, you can't be the queen of defunding the police and the queen of open borders, and it's been 6 days and she has said nothing about 2 police officers being shot in her district. And so I'm not going to let this go. I think the media has to hold her accountable. We cannot allow someone to push for these dangerous policies, and then when a tragedy like this happens, they get away with being silent.
Is there some level, when we talk about the president, he moved forward with this restrictions and moved forward with some of these plans, and he'll say it's because Republicans didn't pass this bill that they wanted with a lot of the material in it. Does some responsibility fall on senators on the Republican side?
That is a complete lie by the president. 60 executive orders he passed, right, when he first got elected that undid our border. He can easily do it back. In fact, the other day he finally admitted that he does have the executive authority because he was pointing to the same provision President Trump used to secure the border, and he did just very minute change. That was the problem. If he just undoes the 60 executive orders he put in place, then this problem would be resolved. So it's interesting that, you know, they create the problem and then they point to us to fix it, but all they have to do is undo what they did.
Anyway, there's a lot going on in D.C. and right here in our city. Thank you so much for coming on Good Day New York.
Hey, thank you.
Congresswoman